One of Sesame Street was full of gods, guns, and a warm fuzzy message tatted on the end. This would be known as Survival Street. This is a graphic novel made by James Asmus and Jim Festante. Now, the Survival Street is a reimagining of our beloved childhood show, Sesame Street. It's just imbued with a very satirical political message. Now that I've been heavily interested in this series, it's been really good so far, and today we're going to be focusing mainly on issue 1 because issue 2 just released and there's a whole lot more to be explored in there. But for those that don't know, we're going to be studying issue 1 and seeing where that takes us. Now then, before we get into the video, if you like comics, manga, anime, and of course pop culture and any other things like movies and TV, this is the place you want to go ahead and follow. Courage Media Group has you, and this is your host Tay. Now then, back to the video. Now then, the story of Survival Street is actually based in 2028, where the law of freedom of speech has been expanded to include the civil liberties that people have to corporations. You know how messed up it can get when companies get involved with politics. Now, at this point in time, companies have privatized everything, which means they basically have taken free civil liberties like school, buses, and things of that nature and made it so that everything is to be paid for. Not only that, but the freedom of speech was expanded to allow them to have any say-so on their land and property. So now, companies are basically mini states or mini countries within the United States. This is the kind of terrible future that they're living in. Now then, when the story actually starts, we are greeted with the actual street name, Salutation Street, not Survival Street, which also happens to be the set of a television series called Salutation Street, which mimics the real-life TV show Sesame Street. The kids are playing, people are having fun, and we get introduced to the first couple of puppets, but we're going to go over that later. Everything is going fine until the broadcast of this show is being interrupted by what we see is militarized agents. This is when we fast forward to New Best America, trademarked 2031, which again plays into the whole satirical role that capitalism plays inside of this story. This is where we find out that people are actually being charged overt amounts just to even enter or exit places like New Best America. This is the first time we're greeted by the Muppet rebellion that is happening within this society, which also is funny because there's a newscasting scene right after. It shows a Muppet newscaster which is tanking on the Muppet rebellion, which is happening right outside the walls of New Best America, going out of their way to say things like felt American to make them feel included, but then again in the same breath call them monsters and that they should not be able to integrate with the regular society that is. In New Best America, we learned that it's all about laissez-faire. This whole society is about less governmental control. And at the same time, the political leader that presides over the society shows off his plans to expand their new reaches with a new building that is supposed to be like a luxurious place. But those plans are about to be interrupted by the team Survival Street, or should I say Salutation Street. This is probably the best time to go over the team that makes up Survival Street. Now then, if you made it this far into the video, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button and become a part of Courage Media Group. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that way you're notified of part 2 and of course any other videos that come out on this channel. First we have Birdie the leader. She dons blue hair, a pink sweatshirt, and her overall look takes on a tactical espionage look, which is kind of hardcore for a puppet. Next is Herbert the Guns. He kind of reminds me of Raphael from TMNT, but at the same time, kind of looks like Oscar the Grouch got a cloak, and this style is pretty amazing. Next up is Gurgle the Sunday Fiend. She got her name because she's been addicted to ice cream. You'll see this later on as it causes trouble for them. And then we have Mr. Burton, the master of disguise, and the only human person that is on this team. And he's supposed to mimic the human characters that kind of befriend all of the Muppets on Sesame Street. So I just think that's a cool inclusion right there. And then we meet Hippie the Hippo. And this makes me wonder who would win in a fight, him or Murray from Sly. And lastly, we meet Tony the Troll, also known as the Recycling Psycho. While the team of Survival Street is actually setting up to destroy the plans that they have set up, we get reintroduced to the character Irma, the person from the newscast, and also the person from the original flashback who was on Salutation Street. This is also the same time that Irma hints that Salutation Street used to be the saving grace of everybody's lives, hinting that they used to control the media as Muppets. Things kind of go south when a servant Muppet reveals that he has apple pie, which is no problem until he reveals ice cream underneath the tray, which sends Gurgle into a frenzy. Now then, remember that Salutation Street used to be broadcast everywhere and everybody knows who they are. So everybody realizes that this is Gurgle, the ice cream fiend. Everybody flees, revealing that the team's location is inside the building. This is when everybody is forced from their positions and have to flee. So Hippie the Hippo and Tony the Troll actually leave their locations, helping out kids that have been locked away down in the basement out to escape. Birdie the leader is also forced from her position to come down out the rafters to enact the plan. This is also when we realize that there's a previous injury on her side, which happens to split open while there is a gunfight. This is a good point to mention that instead of blood, Muppets bleed stuffing, which immobilizes them and makes it hard for them to move on. As the mission is falling apart and Birdie is bleeding out, that is when Gurgle notices that her friend is suffering, and this is when she comes to her aid. And during that commotion is when Irma, their traitor friend, leaves the area with an agent. And at the same time, Herbert is continuing with the mission, placing C4 along the walls, blowing that wall open so that way it can flood into the building. And because of that distraction, Hippie the Hippo and Tony the Troll are able to escape unscathed, while saving some kids in the process. Similarly, Burton is trying to make his escape when he's stopped by other soldiers sitting outside of the building. That's when Mr. Burton asks, "How did you end up like this? If our show meant anything to you, how did you miss the point so completely?" This is when the soldier replies with, "Maybe it's because I like money more instead of puppets." That's when Mr. Burton makes a remark that it's terribly sad to hear that, and the soldier asks why, when the soldiers are ended right then and there by Herbert's bullet. I told you, I think this is great world building because this sets us up to believe that Survival Street or Salutation Street has had a major influence at the world at large, and now people are acting different without their influence. The gang then questions where is Birdie, which then we cut to Irma, who is escaping by limo, and then a surprise happens. This is where we find out that Irma's driver is actually Birdie, and they have a very interesting conversation. Irma questions Birdie, wondering where her driver is. That's when Birdie responds to tell her that she only paid the driver $20 to go take a walk, and that Irma should pay her drivers more, especially if the money is worth that much. This seems to be the moment that Birdie was waiting for when she asked, "Were you full of it then, or are you full of it now?" Birdie then responds with, "Both? Neither?" Birdie then responds with, "Don't be cute, Irma." Irma responds with, "Can't help it, B. I mean it. It's never mattered what we say on television. People don't tune in to have their minds change. Watch whoever tells them what they already believe. When the audience doesn't like the script, they change the channel. If the performer hates the script, sure, he can quit, but the bosses will just recast." Irma then says, "They're never going to treat us as equals, but the only reason these people care about hounding you at all is because you make trouble for their bottom lines." The statement then implies that puppet people or Muppet people are treated as second-rate citizens. Irma then offers Birdie a slip of paper and says, "You should probably join me. We were always better together." We cut back to the team to realize that they have chosen to go on without Birdie. Birdie then does arrive to the team later at their hideout, and the team congratulates her on coming back. But then we see that Birdie is solemnly looking at the slip of paper that Irma passed to her earlier. And this is the end of issue 1. Now then, what do you think of Survival Street so far? A lot has happened and a lot is being unpacked here just in issue 1. Now then, we'll be covering issue 2, but let us know what you like and dislike about the story so far. Now here's some stories I think you should check out, as well as Survival Street. First up is Survival Street issue 2, which had just dropped earlier this week. Now then, this story isn't meant for younger audiences, but I do think it's an interesting tale, so make sure you check that out wherever books are sold. Next is Hunters of Illumis, which is a independent series created on Webtoon. Now this is a story of what if God gave Adam and Eve weapons to fight off the darkness, a whole reimagining of the beginning of the world. Next is If You Give a Dog a Gun, which is a book published by your very own Courage Media Group. It can be found on all online stores like Amazon, Kindle, or Google Books. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And of course, if you like manga, comics, anime, video games, and pop culture and more, make sure you follow Courage Media Group because we got more entertainment coming for you. Peace out.